The rain fell hard on the metal rooftops of Telos 4. Danny Vance pulled his old jacket around his shoulders and walked toward the government auction house. The building was ugly and gray, like everything else on this mining moon. But Danny was not here for beauty. He was here to find something he could sell. Danny was 32 years old and had spent the last 10 years buying and selling scrap metal across the outer colonies. It was not a glamorous life. Most days, he barely made enough credits to keep his small cargo ship running. But he was good at finding value where others saw only junk. That skill had kept him alive this long. The auction hall was crowded with buyers. Most of them were representatives from big salvage companies, wearing expensive suits and carrying that probably cost more than Danny's entire ship. He found a seat in the back row and waited. His business partner sat down beside him. She was a small woman with short brown hair and grease permanently stained into her fingernails. Was the best engineer Danny had ever met. She could make almost anything work, even things that had no right to work at all. "I still think this is a waste of time," whispered. "These government auctions are always picked clean before we even show up. The big companies already know what's worth buying." Danny shrugged. "Maybe, but I have a good feeling today." Rolled her eyes. Danny's good feelings had gotten them into trouble more than once. The auctioneer, a bored-looking man in a gray uniform, began reading off lot numbers. Ships and equipment sold quickly, most going to the corporate buyers for prices Danny could never match. He watched and waited. 2 hours into the auction, the auctioneer reached lot 77. "Next item," the man said, not even trying to hide his lack of interest. One Terran Navy escort frigate designation Steadfast, decommissioned 43 years ago, engine cores depleted, weapons systems removed, hull integrity rated at 62%. Starting bid is $7. A few people laughed. The ship appeared on the display screen behind the auctioneer. It looked old and tired, its armor plating and dented from battles fought long before Danny was born. None of the corporate buyers raised their hands. Why would they? The ship was worthless. It would cost more to tow it to a scrap yard than they would ever get from selling its metal. But Danny raised his hand. Grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" $7, Danny said clearly. The auctioneer looked surprised that anyone had bid at all. $7, going once, going twice. He paused, waiting for another bid that never came. "Sold to the gentleman in the back." Stared at Danny like he had lost his mind. "You just bought a 60-year-old wreck for $7. Congratulations. How exactly are we supposed to move it? We don't have a tow ship." Danny stood up and walked toward the registration desk to complete his purchase. "We'll figure it out." As he signed the transfer documents, Danny noticed something strange. 2 Navy officers were standing in the corner of the room, watching him. When the paperwork was complete and ownership of the Steadfast officially transferred to Danny Vance, the officers exchanged a look. One of them pulled out a communication device and spoke quietly into it. Danny pretended not to notice, but his heart was beating faster now. Those officers were not here to watch a junk auction. They were here to watch who bought lot 77. He suddenly felt much better about his $7 investment. That evening, Danny rented a cheap room at a workers' hostel near the docking bays. The room was small and smelled like engine oil, but it was all they could afford. They spread the Steadfast technical documents across the single bed and tried to make sense of what Danny had bought. "The structural reports are incomplete," said, frowning at her. "Half the sections are marked classified. Even after 43 years of decommission, the Navy is still hiding something about this ship." "That's good," Danny said. "That's concerning," corrected. "What did this ship do that's still classified after 4 decades? Before Danny could answer, the door to their room exploded inward. 3 figures rushed in, wearing black masks and carrying shock batons. Danny had no time to react before one of them grabbed him and threw him against the wall. Pain shot through his back as he hit the metal surface. "Where are the ownership documents?" one of the masked figures demanded. The voice was distorted by a modulator, making it impossible to tell if the speaker was human or alien. Tried to run, but another attacker caught her and pinned her arms behind her back. "The documents," the leader repeated, pressing a shock baton against Danny's chest. "Sign them over to us, now." Danny's mind raced. These people had known exactly where to find him. They had known exactly what he bought. This was not a random robbery. Someone powerful wanted that ship. "I don't have them on me," Danny lied. The documents were actually in his jacket pocket, pressed against his hip. "They're in a secure storage facility. You kill me, you never get them." The leader hesitated. That moment of hesitation was all Danny needed. He grabbed the shock baton and twisted it away from his attacker, then drove his elbow into the man's throat. The masked figure stumbled backward, choking. Danny spun and threw the baton at the person holding, hitting them in the face. Broke free and grabbed their emergency bag from under the bed. "Move," she shouted. They ran, down the hallway, through a fire exit, into the rain-soaked streets of Telos 4. Behind them, Danny could hear the masked figures recovering and giving chase. But Danny knew these streets. He had been coming to this moon for years. He led through a maze of alleyways and service tunnels until they finally lost their pursuers. They stopped in a dark corner behind a water recycling plant, both of them gasping for breath. "What was that?" demanded. "Who were those people?" Danny pulled the ownership documents from his jacket and looked at them. His name was now officially registered as the owner of a 60-year-old warship that was supposedly worth nothing. "I don't know who they were," he said quietly, "but I'm starting to think this ship is worth a lot more than $7. Stared at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head and laughed bitterly. "Your good feelings are going to get us killed someday." Danny folded the documents and put them back in his pocket. "Maybe, but not today. Tonight we hide. Tomorrow we go see what we actually bought." Somewhere in the darkness, rain continued to fall on the metal rooftops of Telos 4. And somewhere out in space, an old warship called the Steadfast waited for its new owner to discover its secrets. Dawn came slowly to Telos 4. The mining moon had no real sunrise, just a gradual brightening of the gray sky as the distant sun climbed above the horizon. Danny had spent the night hiding in an abandoned warehouse, taking turns keeping watch. Neither of them had slept well. "We need to get to the ship," Danny said as the first light crept through the broken windows. "If those people want it badly enough to attack us, they'll try to take it directly. We have to get there first." Nodded, though her face was pale with exhaustion. "And then what? The ship has no power. We can't fly it anywhere." "One problem at a time." They made their way through the industrial district of Telos 4, staying in the shadows and avoiding the main roads. The docking bay where the Steadfast was stored was on the far side of the settlement, past the processing plants and cargo terminals. When they finally reached Bay 77, Danny stopped and stared. The Steadfast was enormous. He had seen the pictures at the auction, but pictures did not capture the true size of the old warship. It sat in its docking cradle like a sleeping giant, its armor plating reflecting the weak morning light. Even after 60 years of sitting unused, it still looked dangerous. "That thing was built for war," said softly. Danny approached the main airlock and pressed his hand against the identification panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a light flickered, and the massive door began to slide open. "Ownership transfer recognized," a mechanical voice announced. "Welcome aboard, Owner Vance." The interior of the ship was dark and cold. Emergency lights glowed faintly along the floor, providing just enough illumination to walk without tripping. Danny pulled out his flashlight and led the way deeper into the vessel. "The power cells are completely drained," said, checking her scanner. "There's no way this ship should have any systems running at all. Where is that voice coming from?" They found their answer in the main engineering section. A small device about the size of a human fist was attached to the central computer core. It glowed with a soft blue light. "That's not standard Navy equipment," said, kneeling down to examine it. "This is some kind of independent power unit. It's keeping the basic computer systems alive without drawing on the main power grid." Someone wanted this ship to stay functional, Danny realized. At least partially. Why? They continued exploring. The ship was in better condition than the auction listing had suggested. Yes, the weapons had been removed and the main engines were dead. But the hull was solid and most of the internal systems seemed intact. Then they found the captain's quarters. The door was sealed with a biometric lock and it was very much active. A small screen displayed a message: "Authorized personnel only. DNA verification required." "This shouldn't be possible," said. "Biometric locks need constant power. This one has been running for decades without any connection to the ship's main systems." Danny pressed his hand against the scanner. "Access," the computer announced. He tried again, same result. "It's keyed to someone specific," said. "Someone who served on this ship before it was decommissioned." Danny's communication device buzzed. He looked at the screen and felt his blood run cold. The message was from an unknown sender. It read, "You bought something that wasn't meant to be sold. The Syndicate will offer you 2 million credits for the vessel. Take the deal. This is not a negotiation." He showed the message too. "The Syndicate," her voice was barely a whisper. "Danny, these are the most dangerous criminals in 3 sectors. They control the entire black market. They've killed government officials, destroyed colonies, started wars. These are not people we can fight." 2 million credits, Danny said slowly. "For a ship worth $7. What do they know that we don't?" He turned off his communication device without responding to the message. "We need to find out what's really on this ship," he said, "before we make any decisions." They spent the next several hours searching every accessible section of the Steadfast, took samples of the hull plating and ran them through her portable analyzer. What she found made her stop and run the test 3 more times. "This is impossible," she finally said. "What is it?" "The armor plating. It's not just reinforced steel and ceramic like standard Navy ships. There are layers of something else, something my analyzer can't identify." She looked up at Danny with wide eyes. "This material has a molecular structure I've never seen before. It's not from Earth. It's not from any planet in the human colonies." "Alien technology." "It has to be, but it's been integrated perfectly with human manufacturing. Someone figured out how to combine alien materials with our own shipbuilding techniques." She ran her hand along the wall. "Danny, if this technology could be reproduced, it would change everything. Stronger ships, better armor, weapons that couldn't be stopped. Whoever controls this formula would control space itself." Danny leaned against the wall and tried to process what she was telling him. The Steadfast wasn't just an old warship. It was a prototype, a test bed for something revolutionary, and somehow it had been forgotten, decommissioned and put up for auction like worthless junk. Unless it hadn't been forgotten at all. Unless someone had hidden it deliberately, buried it in plain sight until they could retrieve it. His communication device buzzed again, another message from the Syndicate. "You have 6 hours to respond. After that, we will take what we want. You will not survive our retrieval process." Read the message over his shoulder. "Danny, we should take the money, 2 million credits. We could disappear. Start new lives somewhere the Syndicate would never find us." Danny shook his head. "If this technology is as important as you say, we can't let criminals have it. The things they could do with it, the people they could hurt." He looked around at the dark corridor of the old warship. This ship belonged to the Terran Navy. Whatever's on board, it belongs to humanity. "That's very noble," said dryly, "but nobility won't stop them from killing us." Then we need to find allies, someone who can help us understand what we're dealing with. A sound echoed through the ship, footsteps coming from somewhere near the main airlock. Danny killed his flashlight, did the same. They pressed themselves against the wall and waited in the darkness. The footsteps grew closer, then stopped. A woman's voice called out, "I know you're in here. My name is Laura. I used to serve on this ship. And if you want to survive the next 6 hours, you need to talk to me right now." Danny and exchanged looks. They had no weapons. They had nowhere to run. The woman knew they were here. Danny made a decision. He stepped out of hiding and turned on his flashlight. Standing in the corridor was a woman who looked about 30 years old. She wore civilian clothes, but she held herself like a soldier. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent, and they showed no fear. "How did you find us?" Danny asked. Laura smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I've been watching this ship for a very long time," she said. "Now, are we going to stand here in the dark, or are you going to let me explain why the Syndicate wants to kill you?" Laura led them to a small storage room near the center of the ship. She pulled out a portable power cell from her bag and connected it to the room's emergency systems. Dim lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the metal walls. "This room is shielded," Laura explained. "No signals can get in or out. We can talk freely here." Danny studied her carefully. She moved with the confidence of someone who knew this ship intimately, who had walked these corridors 1,000 times before. But something about her didn't add up. "You said you served on this ship," Danny said. "The Steadfast was decommissioned 43 years ago. You don't look old enough to have served on anything 43 years ago." Laura's expression didn't change. "We'll get to that. First, you need to understand what you've bought and why people are willing to kill for it." She sat down on a storage crate and gestured for Danny and to do the same. 60 years ago, a human mining ship discovered something in the asteroid belt of the system. It was a wrecked spacecraft, clearly alien in origin. The ship was ancient, possibly thousands of years old, but its hull was still perfectly intact. The aliens who built it were long dead, but their technology survived. Leaned forward, the armor plating, the unknown alloy. Laura nodded. The Navy brought the wreckage back to a classified research station. The scientists there spent years studying the alien hull. They discovered it was made from a self-repairing nanoalloy. Microscopic machines woven into the metal itself, constantly fixing any damage. The ship had survived because it literally could not be destroyed. "They reverse-engineered it," Danny said. "They tried. The formula was incredibly complex. It took them 15 years, but they eventually produced a working version. Not as good as the original, but close. They built 12 ships using this new armor. The Steadfast was one of them." Laura paused. Her eyes grew distant, as if she was remembering something painful. "The project was called Operation Ember. I was assigned as captain of the Steadfast. We were sent on a mission to test the new armor in real combat conditions." She took a deep breath. "We found more than we expected." Danny waited for her to continue. "Deep in uncharted space, we encountered them, the builders of the original ship. They weren't dead after all. They were just sleeping, waiting in a massive station hidden in the darkness between stars. Our arrival woke them up." "Aliens," whispered. "Living aliens with that technology." "They called themselves they were furious that we had stolen their secrets. They attacked our fleet with weapons we couldn't even understand, ships that could move through solid matter, energy beams that passed through our shields like they didn't exist." Laura's voice grew quiet. "They destroyed 11 ships in less than an hour. Thousands of sailors, my friends, my crew." "But the Steadfast survived," Danny said. "Yes, and I still don't fully understand why." Laura stood up and walked to the wall, pressing her hand against the cold metal. "When they attacked us, something happened. The ship's armor didn't just repair itself. It adapted. It changed its molecular structure to resist their weapons. By the end of the battle, they couldn't hurt us anymore." She turned back to face them. The Navy realized they had created something beyond their control. The steadfast armor had evolved into something new, something that even the original alien technology couldn't match. They were terrified. The admirals ordered the ship decommissioned and all records of Operation Ember erased. They thought that by hiding the ship, they could keep its secrets safe. But someone found out, Danny said. The Syndicate. Their leader has been searching for this ship for 11 years. He believes the armor contains the key to creating an invincible fleet. With ships that cannot be destroyed, he could conquer entire systems. No government, no military could stop him. Shook her head. This is insane. You're telling us that the most powerful criminal organization in the galaxy wants this ship so they can become unstoppable. And we're supposed to, fight them? We're salvage operators, not soldiers. You don't have to fight them, Laura said. You just have to keep the ship out of their hands long enough for me to do what needs to be done. Danny frowned. And what exactly is that? Laura hesitated. It was the first time she had shown any uncertainty. There's something else on this ship. Something I hid here before it was decommissioned, in a sealed vault at the core of the vessel. The Syndicate thinks they want the armor, but what they really want is what's inside that vault. What is it? Danny asked. I can't tell you, not yet. You have to trust me. Danny laughed bitterly. Trust you? We don't even know who you are. You claim to be a Navy captain from 60 years ago, but you look 30. You show up out of nowhere right when the Syndicate is threatening to kill us. For all we know, you're working for them. Laura met his gaze steadily. I'm not working for anyone. I've spent the last 4 decades making sure this ship stayed hidden. When I saw it listed in the government auction, I knew the system had failed. Someone inside the Navy sold the location. The Syndicate was supposed to buy it through a proxy, but you got there first. Lucky me, Danny muttered. Luckier than you know. The Syndicate has already dispatched a retrieval team. They're being led by a man named Greg. He's a human trader who knows Terran ships better than anyone alive. He's killed dozens of people for the Syndicate, and he's very good at his job. Grabbed Danny's arm. We need to leave, right now. Forget the ship, forget the money, just run. Danny pulled away from her. He walked to the wall and pressed his hand against the cold armor plating. Somewhere inside this metal, there were machines too small to see, constantly working, constantly adapting. Technology that had survived for thousands of years. Technology that had saved an entire crew when nothing else could. I'm not running, he said quietly. Danny, please be reasonable. He turned to face them both. My whole life I've been scraping by, buying junk, selling junk, never making a difference. This is the first time I've ever been part of something that matters, something bigger than profit margins and salvage contracts. He looked at Laura. I don't trust you. I don't understand half of what you've told me, but I believe that if the Syndicate gets this ship, a lot of people are going to die, and I'm not going to let that happen. Laura studied him for a long moment, then she nodded slowly. The captain's quarters, the biometric lock, it's keyed to my DNA. I can open it. Inside, there's a backup power core that should give us enough energy to activate the ship's defensive systems. It won't let us fly, but it will let us fight. She headed for the door, then stopped. Team will be here within the hour. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Danny grabbed his flashlight and followed her into the dark corridor. Behind him, he heard curse under her breath before following as well. They were out of time. The Syndicate was coming, and the only thing standing between them and an unstoppable criminal empire was a 60-year-old ship, a mysterious woman with impossible secrets, and 2 salvage operators who had absolutely no idea what they were doing. Danny smiled grimly. He had always wanted to do something that mattered. He just hoped he would live long enough to see it through. Laura pressed her hand against the biometric scanner outside the captain's quarters. The device hummed softly, and a green light appeared on the display. The heavy door slid open with a sound like old bones creaking. "Welcome back, Captain," the computer announced. Danny stared at Laura. "The computer still recognizes you, after all these years." "Some things don't forget," Laura said simply. She stepped into the dark room. The captain's quarters were surprisingly small. A narrow bed, a desk, a few personal items covered in decades of dust. But in the corner stood a cylindrical container about 3 feet tall, sealed with multiple locks and covered in warning labels. "The backup power core," Laura said. She began working on the locks with practiced efficiency. "Help me move this to engineering." Danny lifted the heavy cylinder while Laura led the way through the corridors. The ship felt different now, as if it knew something was about to happen. Danny could almost imagine the walls humming with anticipation. In engineering, connected the power core to the main systems. Lights began flickering on throughout the ship. Computer screens activated, displaying system status reports. The Steadfast was waking up. "Emergency power online," the computer announced. "Defensive systems available. Warning, primary engines remain non-functional. Warning, weapons systems not installed." "We can't fight," said. "We can't run. What exactly is the plan here?" Laura was typing commands into the main computer terminal. The Steadfast was designed to survive. Its armor isn't just for protection. It's an active defense system. When the ship detects a threat, it can seal itself completely. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. "So we turn the ship into a fortress," Danny said. "Exactly, and his team can throw everything they have at us. The armor will hold. We just have to wait them out." Danny frowned. "Wait them out? The Syndicate has unlimited resources. They'll just sit outside and starve us." "No," Laura said, "because I've already sent a distress signal to the Terran Navy. They'll be here within 12 hours. When they arrive, we'll have to retreat. He can't fight a Navy battle group." Scanner beeped urgently. "Someone's approaching the docking bay. Multiple contacts. They're armed." Laura finished her commands and stepped back from the terminal. "Computer, initiate lockdown protocol. Authorization Alpha 7. Lockdown protocol initiated, sealing all external access points." Throughout the ship, Danny could hear the sound of heavy doors slamming shut. The main airlock sealed with a final, definitive thump. "Now we wait," Laura said. For the next few minutes, nothing happened. Then a voice came through the ship's external communication system. "This is Greg representing the Syndicate. I know you're in there, Danny Vance. I know Laura is with you. Here's how this is going to work. You're going to open this ship and you're going to give me what I came for. If you cooperate, you live. If you don't, I'm going to cut my way through this hull and kill everyone inside. You have 5 minutes to decide." Danny looked at the others. Can he actually cut through the hull? Laura shook her head. "No cutting tool in existence can breach this armor. He's bluffing." "Then we don't respond. Let him waste his time." They waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The first explosion shook the entire ship. Danny grabbed a support beam to keep from falling. Alarms began blaring, and red warning lights flashed across every display. "What was that?" shouted. "They're using heavy ordnance," Laura said, checking the damage reports. "Military-grade explosives, far more firepower than ordinary criminals should have." Another explosion hit, then another. The ship rocked with each impact, but the hull held. "Armor integrity at 94%, the computer reported. "All breaches automatically repaired." Danny watched the repair process on the display. Wherever the explosions had damaged the hull, the metal was flowing back together like water filling a hole. The nanomachines were working exactly as Laura had described. "He's throwing everything at us," Laura said with grim satisfaction, "and it's not working." For the next hours, team attacked the Steadfast with everything they had. Explosives, cutting lasers, plasma torches. None of it worked. The ship repaired itself faster than they could damage it. Finally, his voice came through the communication system again. He sounded frustrated. "Impressive ship, Captain. I can see why wants it so badly. But you're making a mistake. The Navy isn't coming to save you. We've jammed all outgoing signals from this moon. Your distress call never made it out." Laura's face went pale. She rushed to the communication terminal and began running diagnostics. Her expression told Danny everything he needed to know. "He's telling the truth," she said quietly. "The signal was blocked. No one is coming." Danny felt his hope crumble. They were trapped. The armor would hold, but they couldn't stay inside forever. Eventually, their power would run out. Their food would run out, and would still be waiting. "There has to be another way," said. "Something we haven't thought of." Laura sat down heavily in the captain's chair. For a moment, she looked her age, all 60-plus years of it. "There is one option," she said slowly, "but it's dangerous. I don't know if the ship can survive it." "What option?" Danny asked. "The vault, the thing I hid at the center of the ship." Laura looked up at him. "It's not just cargo, Danny. It's a piece of the original alien ship, the heart of their technology. I brought it back from the battle and sealed it here before the Navy could take it." Stared at her. "You stole alien technology from a classified military operation." "I saved it. The Navy wanted to destroy it. They were afraid of what it could do, but I knew that someday humanity would need it. Someday we would face a threat that ordinary weapons couldn't stop." Laura stood up and walked toward the door. "If I activate the device, it will merge with the steadfast systems. The ship will become something new, something that might be powerful enough to break through's blockade." "Or it might kill us all," Danny said. "Yes, there's a real chance of that. The technology is unpredictable. It changed me, Danny. It kept me alive for 60 years, stopped me from aging, but it took something from me too, things I can't explain." Laura's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm not asking you to come with me. This is my responsibility, my choice." Danny thought about everything that had happened. The auction, the attack, the Syndicate. He thought about his whole life of scraping by, never making a difference. "No," he said, "I bought this ship. That makes it my responsibility too." Groaned. "I knew you were going to say that. Fine. If we're going to die, at least we'll die doing something stupid and heroic." Laura smiled for the first time since they had met her. It was a real smile, warm and grateful. "Follow me," she said. "It's time you saw what's really in the heart of this ship." She led them toward the center of the Steadfast, toward the sealed vault and the secret that had been hidden there for over 60 years. Outside continued his assault. Inside, 3 unlikely allies walked toward a destiny none of them fully understood. The galaxy was about to change, and it all started with a $7 ship. The vault was located in the deepest part of the ship, past corridors that grew narrower and darker as they descended. The walls here were different from the rest of the vessel. They seemed to pulse with a faint blue light, as if the metal itself was alive. "The original alien alloy," Laura explained. "I reinforced this section with material from the wrecked ship. It's the most protected place on the Steadfast." The vault door was massive, nearly a foot thick and covered in symbols that Danny didn't recognize. Laura placed both hands on the surface and closed her eyes. The symbols began to glow, responding to her touch. "The lock is bonded to me," she said. "Part of the alien technology is inside my body now. It's how I've survived so long. It's also why only I can open this door." The vault opened with a sound like distant thunder. Inside was a single object, floating in a column of soft light. It was a sphere, about the size of a human head, made from the same strange material as the walls. Its surface shifted constantly, patterns moving across it like clouds across a sky. Danny felt a strange sensation in his chest, as if the sphere was aware of him, watching him. "What is it?" whispered. "They called it a core," Laura said. "Their ships were built around these objects. They're not just power sources. They're more like minds. Each core contains centuries of knowledge, memories, experiences. When I took this one from the dying ship, it bonded with me. It kept me alive. It taught me things about the universe that humans were never meant to know." She stepped closer to the floating sphere. "I've spent 60 years preparing for this moment. The core knows the Steadfast now. It's been reaching out to the ship systems, learning them, adapting to them. If I fully activate it, the core will merge with the vessel. The Steadfast will become something beyond human technology." "What kind of something?" Danny asked. "I don't know exactly. The core shows me possibilities but never certainties. It might give us the power to escape, to fight, to survive, or it might destroy us all." Laura reached out and touched the sphere gently. "But I do know this. If the Syndicate gets their hands on this technology, they will use it to enslave millions. Doesn't want an invincible fleet. He wants to become a god." Another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. "Hull integrity at 87%, the computer announced. "Warning, sustained damage is exceeding repair capacity." Checked her scanner. They've brought in heavier equipment, industrial plasma cutters. They're focusing all their firepower on a single point in the hull. "The armor can only repair so fast," Laura said. "If they concentrate enough energy on one location, they might actually breach it." Danny looked at the sphere, then at Laura, then at... 2 days ago, he had been a salvage operator with nothing but debts and dreams. Now he was standing at the center of something that could change the galaxy. "Do it," he said. Laura nodded. She closed her eyes and placed both hands on the core. The effect was immediate. The sphere began to glow brighter, its surface patterns moving faster. The walls of the vault started to hum, and Danny could feel vibrations running through the floor. Throughout the ship, lights flickered from white to blue. "Connection established," the computer announced, but its voice was different now. Deeper, more complex. "Analyzing vessel systems, beginning integration process." Grabbed Danny's arm. "Something's happening to the hull." On her scanner, they could see the ship changing. The armor plating was reorganizing itself, becoming thicker in some areas, more flexible in others. New systems were coming online, systems that hadn't existed a moment ago. "The core is rebuilding the ship," Laura said. Her voice was strained and her hands were shaking. "It's using the nanoalloy to create new structures, new capabilities." Outside, Greg watched in disbelief as the ship he had been attacking began to transform. The damaged hull sealed itself completely, and the metal started to shift and flow like liquid. Strange, new shapes emerged from the surface. "What is that?" one of his mercenaries asked. Didn't answer. He was already backing away, his instincts screaming at him to run. The Steadfast rose from its docking cradle. It should have been impossible. The ship had no functional engines, but it was moving anyway, lifted by forces that couldn't understand. "Fall back," he shouted to his team. "Get to the ship, get us out of here." But it was too late. The Steadfast's new systems activated. A wave of energy swept across the docking bay, shutting down every piece of equipment had brought. His weapons went dead. His communication devices went silent. Even the lights in the bay flickered and failed. Inside the vault, Laura collapsed. Danny caught her before she hit the ground. "It's done," she whispered. "The core is part of the ship now, and I'm part of the core." "What do you mean?" Laura looked up at him with eyes that now glowed faintly blue. "I can feel the entire ship, Danny. Every wall, every system, every molecule. The Steadfast is alive now, and so am I. We're connected." Was staring at her scanner in amazement. The ship's power output just increased 100-fold. We have full engine capability. Weapons that I don't even have names for. This isn't a warship anymore. It's something else entirely. Danny helped Laura to her feet. She was weak, but she was smiling. "This team is disabled," she said. "Their equipment won't work again until we let them go. The Navy will find them eventually." She looked at Danny with her strange new eyes. "You saved humanity today. You, and without you, the Syndicate would have this ship now." "So what happens next?" Danny asked. Laura walked toward the vault door. The ship responded to her thoughts now, opening passages and lighting her way. "The Syndicate won't give up. We'll send more people, better people, and eventually they themselves will notice what we've done. They don't like it when other species use their technology." She stopped at the entrance to the main corridor and looked back at Danny. "I've been hiding for 60 years, Danny, protecting this ship, this technology, waiting for the right moment. Now that moment has come. The Steadfast is awake and she needs a captain." Danny blinked. "Me, I'm a salvage operator. I bought this ship for $7. "You bought her because you believed she was worth something when everyone else saw junk. You stayed to fight when everyone else would have run. You trusted a stranger with impossible claims because you knew somehow that this was important." Laura's blue eyes were warm despite their strange glow. "The ship agrees with me, Danny. She wants you." Groaned loudly. "Please tell me we're not about to become space heroes. I hate being a hero. Heroes get killed." Danny laughed. It felt strange to laugh after everything that had happened, but he couldn't help it. "I don't think we have much choice anymore," he said. He looked at the corridor stretching out before him, leading to the bridge of a ship that was no longer just metal and machines. A ship that was alive, that had chosen him. "Okay," he said, "let's see what this ship can really do." The Steadfast rose higher, breaking free from the docking bay entirely. It moved through the thin atmosphere of Telos 4 and climbed toward the stars. Behind them, and his mercenaries could only watch as their prize disappeared into the darkness of space. Somewhere in that darkness, received word of his team's failure. His alien face showed no emotion, but inside he was already planning his next move. And far beyond the edge of known space, something ancient stirred. They had felt their technology activate. They knew someone had awakened a core. After 10,000 years of waiting, they were curious. The hunt was only beginning.